Welcome back to Fast Market, everyone. Kevin Hinks, Alex Coffey, back for our middle segment, our cash tag segment. Now I want to bring in the Vice President of Research for LikeFolio.com. That is Miss Megan Brantley to the show. Megan, happy Friday. Welcome to the show. We haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for coming on. Celsius energy drink. You know what I like, Megan? When LikeFolio, when it's your idea to bring something to the show, I know it's going to be good data. What do you got for us, Megan?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, guys. Happy Friday. Whenever we were looking around our universe to see, what names are outperforming, Celsius is one that really rose to the top of our list. Just to give you some scale, if we were to rank every single company in our coverage universe based on its earnings signal, regardless of when earnings is anticipated, Celsius is at the very top of this list. So this is kind of a fun one to talk about today. And part of that is due to its just consistently growing demand, and especially this demand growth versus other peers. So I think that our outlier grid is a chart that we like to use to showcase how a company is performing, especially versus other peers in its space. And when we look at Celsius, we see consumer demand growth, so consumer mentions from people who are talking about, buying Celsius or drinking Celsius. Those mentions are up more than 100% year over year. So I think last quarter, Celsius posted some pretty impressive growth. And this tells us that not only is Celsius maintaining this rate of growth, but it's actually improved upon this, and this growth rate is accelerating. And this is pretty impressive considering, now this is a name that's been around for a little bit. And it's also in a bucket with some pretty big peers. Like if you look at Monster Energy, you can see this is a massive peer and a massive brand based on the size of that circle. But from a happiness perspective and a growth perspective, Celsius is starting to outperform. So this to us tells us that Celsius is starting to steal some market share away from this larger brand like a Monster. So this is just one that's on our radar, especially considering if you look at shares, the stock has really pulled back a bit in the last 3 months. And so this is one where we're starting to see an opportunity developing, and we're a couple weeks ahead of the company's next earnings event, so we have a little bit of time to play this.
It's been a really impressive stock to watch over the last few years as it's really rose to a more prominent position within this energy drink market, Megan. But one thing that I've noticed is they have a very, it seems like, modern approach to marketing, targeting more ambassadors in kind of social media influencer kind of realms. And clearly that's been effective because you can see the growth element of what you're looking at is a very impressive number. But I'm also really impressed to see how high the happiness is as well. So they obviously have a clear message, a more healthy alternative for the energy space, targeting a more active demographic, more health-conscious demographic. And it seems to be, at least the perception is that they're delivering really well in that, because very few names have both extremely high happiness and growth at the same time.
Yeah, you make a really good point. I think that's why Celsius is such an outlier for us. And another thing that I like that you pointed out is kind of why Celsius, like why we see them outperforming. And a lot of this is because of the niche that they've carved with those fitness-minded consumers and health-minded consumers. Because anytime we see happiness levels, especially over 80%, I think Celsius is now around 82%, that's really high in our universe. And so this is pretty impressive. And, if you've been following the news cycles, you know that Celsius has been in the headlines for some lawsuits recently, I think most recently with rapper Flo Rida. So anytime we start to see, the brand come under question, but continue to show, at least on the consumer front, that consumers still like its products, that this product is still flying off the shelves, that's a really powerful proof point for us to say, okay, don't get distracted by the noise whenever you're thinking about this name long term. But, back to those health benefits that I mentioned, one thing that's really interesting is we're seeing Celsius's demand really accelerate as consumers kick off the new year. And we know that the new year is a time when a lot of consumers set resolutions. They get back in the gym, they start trying to be more healthy or more mindful of what they're consuming. And Celsius is really benefiting from this. One of the top just wellness trends overall that we're tracking in 2023 is this concept of adaptogens. And adaptogens are substances, and they're really derived from plants, but they're things that have these perceived functional benefits, whether that's to anxiety, whether that's to fatigue, for stress, for energy. And we see that Celsius is really leveraging these functional benefits really well. It talks about a lot of the products or the ingredients in its drink that are derived from plants, whether it's green tea, whether it's guarana seeds, and you'll have to forgive my pronunciation on that, but we do see this, and you can see that on the far bar on the right, that this shift in the consumer mindset is really benefiting Celsius because they've successfully positioned themselves as a drink that's a little bit better for you maybe than your traditional standard energy drink that you might think of.
Yeah, Megan, this is not Red Bull, right? I mean, some of the quotes I'm reading, good for you ingredients and supplements, a health-conscious energy drink with a calorie-burning, functional energy drink. So this is a drink that you don't have to feel bad about drinking, correct? I mean, and you can see by the happiness on the, where is it? Let me see, the purchase intent versus sentiment. Top right is what you're aiming for, Megan. I mean, this is about as far top right as you can possibly be with this name. This is pretty impressive up against some pretty good competition.
Yeah, for sure. This is, definitely, this is even an outlier of an outlier grid for us when we look at these outperformances. A lot of times we might see a major outperformance in consumer happiness. We might see a major outperformance when it comes to demand growth, but it's rare to see both in the same chart. And so that's why when we do, we like to highlight those examples. And I do think it's interesting that, if we were to break these things down at the brands level, if you were to look at Monster Energy, for example, we do see growth in pockets of Monster Energy. We see growth in regard to Monster's Ultra, so it's lower calorie brand. We see growth in Monster's Rehab brand, which is more tailored to the post-workout type of consumer. So it's interesting to see the same trends are driving growth in a couple of different brands, but so far it seems like Celsius is harnessing this tailwind the best.
Megan Brantley, Vice President of Research at LikeFolio.com. Thank you so much for spending part of your Friday with us and bringing us this data on Celsius Energy Drink. Megan, have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. You too.
All right, Alex.